so that's the Zoom in the corner there?
Yeah, so it's screen sharing to the Zoom, but you still have, so it's just that whole window. So if you still needed to like zoom out or go to a specific slide or do something, you still have full access to that window.
Okay, so I'm just gonna be clicking through the
Yeah.
PowerPoint, so if I just don't, I don't wanna click off anywhere, so just don't click up here and just click like around here, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not gonna mess anything up if you.
Okay. And do you know if you have like a clicker that I can move away from the computer or?
Oh, we have a pointer.
I don't wanna mess with that.
No, I don't know why this isn't working.
Okay, well, as long as I.
If you want, I can sit over here and click for you.
I'll do the clicking. I don't want there to be confusion, because I did not create this PowerPoint. It was created by the state, and it's not the greatest in my opinion. There's a lot of kind of things in it. I tried to fix it some, but yeah, it was not real user friendly.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people will be attending?
I do not know the exact amount.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. You doing this for the mayor's group?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm the personnel officer for Delaware County.
Oh, okay.
My name is Kara. Nice to meet
Yeah, I'm
you.
Jim Thompson.
Oh, hi,
I'm
Jim.
with economic development.
Yeah, I think you've been in and out. My
Yeah.
office is right next
Yeah,
to
I walk by
Glenn's.
your door all the time.
Yeah, nice to formally meet you.
Yeah. How's it going?
Good,
Good.
good. Yourself?
I can't complain.
Yeah, nice day. We got a little snow early, but kind of smoothed out a little bit.
Yeah. Not bad at all. Easy winter.
Yeah, we really haven't had too much in the way of a big snowstorm. We're supposed to get a little more than I think they really had expected
Yeah.
yesterday. That didn't really
Kinda
come to
missed.
fruition. Guess I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'll take it.
Yes.
you work a lot with Lynn, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we have things that are
Right.
going on at the same time, I pretty much work with everyone at the county, which
Sure
is
you do.
kind of nice. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning. How you doing? Good, how are you? Well, you could, but I might not listen, you never know. There you go. It's all right, I had a big night last night. Did you? Yeah. Syracuse pulled off a big one. Ah.
So
Good morning, yeah.
good morning, where am I on the agenda today?
First,
First thing.
right up front so we can get done and get back to work.
Okay, thank you.
I imagine you've got a pretty good list of things to
I
do.
certainly do. Certainly do. I timed this last night and it was about 40 minutes, so I figured with questions. 45, 50, we'll see.
Good.
Mhm.
May have to have you back a second time.
You might, because this is gonna be kind of a overview. There's a lot of topics to cover. Probably could do
A lot of things we
multiple.
probably don't know.
Yeah, I mean, things to at least get people thinking before making decisions that could have legal impacts and things like that. So should be helpful, I would think.
Yep, definitely.
Now, how many of the mayors are new?
Or.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I'm from the Reporter. Do you mind have a preference of where I sit or? Okay.
I see you recovered from the other night,
Yeah, just barely.
so I would say, I would think we would have bored you pretty good.
No, I've been in a lot worse. You know.
Well, I'll have the pleasure of boring you today. I'm Kara. I'm the personnel officer at Delaware County.
Nice to meet you, Alicia Corba.
Alicia, nice to meet you. Are you related to Terry Corba?
Yes.
Okay, I know Terry.
The youngest.
Okay, I haven't seen her in forever.
How do you know her?
Used to teach with her
Oh,
at
nice.
Stanford. Yeah.
It's difficult to get away from us.
Yeah.
How's your sister doing?
Which one, Shelly or Leah?
Talia, well, both of them.
Well, Leah's out in Seattle. We'll probably see her in the summer, I would expect. They came for Christmas, so that was
Why
nice.
in heaven's name would she be in Seattle?
She has a great job working for the college out there. She travels all over the world doing presentations, and yeah, she's still doing a lot of research projects and things like that. So she's got a pretty big gig out there. Shelly is teaching at Wyndham. You probably know that. Mhm. So they're doing pretty well too. Good morning.
And so your nieces and nephews.
Oh, all nieces. I got
All nice.
2 nieces on Charlie's side and 1 on Aaliyah's.
Sound good, good. Good. Let's go. So when do you officially step down?
Well, my last meeting is this coming March. Then I have to attend the April meeting to officially create the process of that meeting, and then the gavel is turned over and my soul is free.
That's quite the way to put it.
I completely understand it though.
Oh, it's not bad. I really enjoyed it. I'll miss it.
So you're just working on the normal election cycle.
Yeah. It was a good 10 years. I really enjoyed it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
You come across.
And of course, I have status in the community. People call me mayor, you know. I got that respect for my family. But it was fine.
I kind of prefer it when they don't call me mayor.
What's that?
I kind of prefer it when they don't call me mayor.
Yeah, right.
Because if they call me mayor, that means they want something.
Right. And we have the benefit of not having many local laws because we can't enforce them anyway. You know, it's good to have a police department, but it also creates a lot of extra level of responsibility that sometimes can't be contained.
Yep. Well, it does take time.
But it is democracy at its purest level.
I just went round and round yesterday unexpectedly. Because the town court, we don't have a village court. So everything goes to the town court. And at one point, we were receiving virtually all of the money from the parking fines, et cetera.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're not
Oh,
getting any money.
yeah.
Maybe with that.
And
So round and round. we
Yeah,
went
of course.
yesterday.
Hey, you're out of the hospital. How you feeling?
We're cooking.
Good. Hey, how you doing?
good, good,
I'm doing well.
good, good.
Come on.
Morning.
Hi, Eric. Eric, Tom Briggs.
This is Eric Wall. He's my deputy mayor.
I've met Eric before. How you doing, Eric?
How are you?
Nice to meet you. Yeah,
Did you get my email this morning?
I did.
We'll need to,
Yes.
talk further. Well, we will.
Yep. How you doing? The only one that I heard from isn't going to be here is Ron Schneider from Stevenson.
Yeah, and Sean Shannon, I can always get the name, right. Sean Shannon from Hancock. He said, I really, something came up, I can't make that. It's okay.
So that's the person from the contact.
Yeah, he's. It's tough because they're so far away.
Yeah.
You know, I said to them, if you could make it to Hancock with somebody, then to Walton, then I'll ride you to here, but eventually we'll get there.
I don't think there is one.
Sign up for the resolution.
We have to check them.
Hello, how are you? Good.
How we did the other day, at least the last time we had a meeting.
Yeah, it would be good to know if
The
there's
grants
anybody.
we're getting for,
Yeah.
We're all good.
This is in person. I
Yes.
talked to you on the phone a few times.
You have.
I know, I get to be a pain sometimes.
Mhm.
Is there somebody trying to connect to Zoom link?
We just checked and there's no one in the waiting room.
Well,
Yes, yep. Somebody, one of the mayors. is trying to-
Oh, is this the participants that
Yeah.
popped up here?
We're the only.
How you doing? Good, no, good.
There
How are you?
was.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm recruiting for my whole-
It seems everybody's got cold, respiratory, COVID, and.
So that one is us, right?
Yeah,
It's all Jim's fault.
and then
He
if
started
they
it all.
need
He
to
started it
join,
all.
it should pop up right there.
Okay.
I guess we can just wait and see what. Does it say that they're in the waiting room?
Yeah.
Did it say that they were in the waiting room?
Because we see one participant and it's us.
Maya's trying to, Maya, Kai's trying to check you.
They are the way forward.
Just said, Ray Pucci's personal meeting room, Zoom, and that's all they see.
I have no idea then.
This is the screenshot she's getting. Can't complain.
Oh, because that's the personal meeting room. She needs the link for this specific meeting.
Okay.
Let me just try to see if I can invite her. Jeff, is this everybody else that you were expecting otherwise?
So
right,
have
Fleischman.
Fleischman's and Margaretville.
They both said they were coming, right?
Did she get an email with the link
I don't know
attached
if she
to
did
it?
or not. I sent her that she needs the specific link she's.
It
Is her
should be,
email address in the
yeah, I.
group.
The email.
No.
Let me just check to make sure that it's in here.
That's in the report tomorrow.
Yeah, she has it from email, she said.
And then he might not have.
So, they don't need it.
Sent her the right link.
I heard about it.
You can send her the meeting ID, and then that should be able to get her into the specific one.
Let's see what I've got for her.
Okay. Way more sure the head of the committee. Gotcha.
Wait, too many
So now he's
screens.
on- But you gotta keep doing it. Look at that, yeah. I always say it's like Chinese torture. Little cuts, before you know it, they don't realize it.
I just have it down
You understand that,
as
don't you?
Maya Bukai, but there should be more to it than that.
Can you send her an invite from there?
That we have to have an address.
Oh, I have an email address.
You got her address.
Maya.bukai@gmail.com. My name, BOUKAI@gmail.com.
That's why you do so good, because you got Kim. That's good. Yeah, I know what it is.
Somebody's got a, you on the street.
Well, I.
Hey, how you doing down?
Hey, morning.
How are you?
How are you?
It's from the first meeting. I think I had people's names and email addresses. If you want to add addresses, phone numbers, or contact them, that way I can file a list
What I
of all of
have,
our membership.
I have the numbers, phone numbers.
Oh, okay.
I have them in my phone.
Well, if you want to just pass that around in case somebody's not on the list,
Oh, okay.
then they can add themselves.
Just want the phone number?
Yep, address and phone number for everybody.
I'll do-
Get a
I'll do
copy
office
of that
use,
for
right?
you, then I won't have to send the same thing
Absolutely.
around.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I'll do office, use, right?
Office, yes.
Fill with all office.
Whatever your contact phone number would be, whether you want.
Oh, I mean, but you said address.
Oh, your phone, wherever, we're probably not gonna mail anything anyways, but I'd rather have it on file.
Okay, I'm gonna put the office.
Whatever you use for a village.
Yeah.
Address.
I just emailed her.
So she has the link.
Yeah.
We still have one person.
Different stuff. I haven't heard from him in
We'll give it a
while.
minute.
I don't know.
Will I be able to see, because I don't see the little pop out anymore or the screen share thing.
I know he's around, but.
Just for the minutes, yeah.
If you wanna be on the list, if he wants to be on the contact list,
Oh,
will he
then he's gotta
routinely
be-
come?
So it'll
Yeah,
pop
put
that
yourself on
there's
there,
two
just add yourself.
participants
Yeah,
once
okay.
she's in.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to grant her access because she'll pop up in the participants menu, but other than that, it should be smooth sailing.
Oh, there it is.
Hey, Marco.
Good morning, Maya.
Oops.
Good morning, I'm here, thank you.
Good morning,
Hey, good morning,
Maya.
How are you?
Morning, good, thanks.
I know that Rob had said he wasn't going to be here. In fact, from Hope,
Oh, yeah.
very difficult to get a hold of him.
Yeah, the pod is gonna be tough because they're so far away and the mayor has a disability, make it tough for him to go, but he was trying to win every kid to get someone to come. But they're very supportive of it, so they'll go for
Just for as long as they're in Delaware County.
it.
I know you're.
Well, it's a long process. It's gonna take a while. I asked them the other day. They're working on it, but it's a long
And
process.
add an address and a phone number, just so that I can compile it.
I don't know if Ray wants copies of any of that.
I'll have your contact information. Probably already have it, but not in this context.
Yeah. You probably ought to get started. I'll let Tara introduce herself to you. Former student, former colleague, now works for the county of Delaware. In a very important position with the civil service. She has a lot to introduce to us. It may require a second visit after this. Let the first one settle in a little bit. don't want to overload on information, but apparently there's quite a bit that we should be aware of that maybe we're not aware of in terms of how we run our villages and employees. So
I'll take it from there.
take it from there.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Again, my name is Carrera Nogin. I am the Personnel Officer at Delaware County. So I'm going to be going over some things with you today. As you know, I have formerly worked with Jeff, and he was also my high school English teacher and my soccer coach, which is fitting because today I'm going to be going over the rules of the game of civil service with you. So this is a PowerPoint that I'll be presenting that was put together by the State Civil Service Commission. It is very much a state issued PowerPoint. There's not a lot of fancy bells and whistles going on, so I'll try to keep it quick and as interesting as we can, even though civil service can be a little bit of a dry topic. So the objectives for today's presentation are to first and foremost demystify the civil service system. Some of you have been working with this for years, others of you are new to it. Hopefully you will all get something out of today's presentation. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
I also want to clarify roles in this system of appointing authorities, which would be all of you, also our department heads at the county, our town supervisors, and also the leaders of our special districts, which we'll go over later. The Municipal Civil Service Agency, which is my office, the Personnel Office of Delaware County, and New York State Civil Service, which is where I answer to in regards to civil service matters. And finally, we'll talk about the importance of communication, because obviously we're a very large county geographically. So in order for us to be able to properly administer civil service within that area, we need to be able to communicate. So that today is part of me doing that as a way of communicating to all of you the expectations that we have in our office and ways to get a hold of us if you have questions. Okay, so the legal basis for the civil service system as we administer it is set in the New York State Constitution, which states that appointments and promotions in the public service shall be made according to merit and fitness. So merit and fitness is the key to making sure that we have a strong workforce for the public and that these people are fit to do the work that they do. This is ascertained as far as practicable by examination, which as far as practicable shall be competitive. That shall is very important to the state. There are different types of positions, which we will talk about in a little bit. The majority of them are competitive, which means that you must pass an examination to be permanently appointed to a competitive position. Okay, so municipalities, we're going to talk briefly about Palmer versus the town of Geddes. This is a lawsuit that took place back in 1937 that had some very important implications for civil service for municipalities. So Palmer was a carpenter that was employed by a school district. He was employed under a contract, so he never actually took a civil service exam to do that job. So he worked for several years for them and they wound up terminating him. Poor Mr. Palmer decided that he didn't feel it was right that he was terminated. It was a breach of his contract in his eyes. So he decided he was going to sue the town for that wrongful termination in his mind. Again, Mr. Palmer did not win this case. It did not go his way because it was determined that the town actually had a legal responsibility to have given him an exam for this position, and that his contract was not a legally binding document because it was not a legal hire, and therefore the school had the right to immediately terminate him. So Mr. Palmer did not win that, and it wound up setting some precedents. So it's stated in this finding from the lawsuit that the legislature may not disregard, evade, or weaken the force of the mandate of civil service. So in other words, no contract is going to be able to override civil service law. And that is true today if you have union contracts. If they are not in compliance with the law does take precedent. So any failure of the legislature and the Civil Service Commission to make any provision that would render compliance difficult, such failure could not render lawful a contract of employment which violates the mandate of civil service. So there is no way to get around civil service. The law is the law and we must abide by it. Okay, structure. The structure of the civil service starts at the top with the New York State Civil Service Commission, which is appointed by the governor. They act on local rules, which every municipality has a set of local rules. We have one at Delaware County, and if you don't have a copy of it, I will make sure to get you that. Those rules we're going to talk about a little bit more later. They have the binding effect of law. The New York State Civil Service Commission will also conduct reviews of municipal administration. They do that in a couple of different ways. We send a report annually to them of administration activities within the municipalities. They can also come and do audits of our records. So they will conduct reviews in that manner to ensure proper administration throughout the state. So the services that they provide to municipal civil service agencies are position classification. So this is when a new position is created and we have to determine what classification to put it under. They will approve or deny those setups. They also help us administer the examination program. So the state will set the majority of the examination dates. They will send us the examination materials when we order them. And we are in charge of taking care of that at a local level. And they will also provide technical advice and assistance. So if we have a case that seems to be kind of a gray area, if it's not clear how to proceed from our local rules and the law, we can contact New York State Civil Service and get their feedback. A lot of times you're going to come across kind of unusual scenarios. You can call me, maybe we've dealt with it before, and I can say, okay, this is what the state told us to do when the same thing happened in another village or town. Otherwise, I can contact them for further information if I need to. Okay. So the objectives of the civil service program are selection based on merit, as we talked about before. Fair and open competition, which gives a fair chance to members of the public that are interested in public employment. And a career system. And the career system is set up. The civil service law encourages the promotion from within. So people would start, at a lower level title and have the opportunity to grow through the system. And when I am doing review of new positions that you might want to create, I'm going to be keeping that in mind so that when I set those minimum qualifications, they're going to be reasonable for the position. They're going to be reasonable for where we're going to set the rate of pay. And they're also going to be a piece of a promotional ladder. So it gives a person an opportunity to advance within public employment, which helps you all to retain employees and also to attract employees for a solid career. Okay, next, below the State Civil Service Commission is me. I am your direct liaison to the State Civil Service Commission. And you'll notice that this arrow goes both ways because they will send me updates of changes to civil service law. They will send me information and clarification on things that we need from them. And I will also send them information from all of you. If we've got issues that keep cropping up, questions that we have, I will kick that up to the State Civil Service Commission. Sometimes they will actually take that information to their commission group and start talking about ways that they can work with that. They have been really looking at state civil service law, and they have been making a lot of changes recently. So that is something that they are looking at overhauling. Okay, and then beneath that is the jurisdictions that are under civil service purview of Delaware County. So we've got the county itself. I do all of the HR related duties for all of the county employees, and each department head there is an appointing authority. Each town supervisor is an appointing authority that I oversee their appointments and terminations. Each village, each school district within the county, and our special districts, which include the Soil and Water District, as well as the Sydney Village Library. Okay, so the state civil service law covers civil service administration, jurisdictional classifications of positions, recruitment of personnel. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're telling us that we have to recruit through Facebook or through Indeed or any platform like that. They're talking about rules of recruitment. So for some positions, residency is a requirement. For others, it's not. Some of that is laid out in state law. Some of that is determined in our local rules. Those things are governed under the state civil service law. Also, personnel changes, how to conduct them, how to get approval for them. And finally, enforcement. So this is the officer part of my personnel officer title. So the enforcement portion of this is where if I see that something is not being done under the civil service law, it's my responsibility to immediately notify the appointing authority and to assist them in addressing it. And that is something that I take very seriously. I'm not here to police you. I'm here to help you. If I see that something's not being done correctly, I will make sure that you have all the information that you need to get it corrected as soon as possible. Okay, so the civil service rules, we talked about these a little bit before. These are essentially an extension of the civil service law as how we are going to apply it at the local level. So these are adopted by civil service. So when I do this, there is a set of model rules from the state. So I can look at those model rules and use them to make changes if I want to our rules. A lot of the rules that we have in place, we're going to keep in place because the model rules have changed and we have grandfathered in some things that are very helpful for us, such as being able to have part-time police officers as non-competitive employees. The state will no longer approve that if I were to put that in as a new request. So that's something that we are never going to get rid of because that helps you to retain your police forces at the local level. Okay, these have the force and effect of law. So that means that when you are trying to do some of the things that are covered under the civil service rules, such as a termination or layoff, you've got to follow the rules according to the civil service law, as well as our Delaware County rules specifically. Okay, so covered in the rules is position classification. So that is something that I do with you as part of a partnership, because you're going to come up with a position that you need in your village or your town, Maya. Then you're going to notify my office before you hire someone, because we need to determine what the official civil service title is for that position. And if we don't have one, then I'm going to have to create one. And that is going through the process of classification of that position. Does it fit in our library of titles, or do we need to make a new one? Okay, then if we have to make a new one, we have to give it a jurisdictional classification, which in a nutshell is determining how it's going to be considered as far as, is it a testable title? Is it a competitive title, or is it not? So we'll go into more detail on that in a bit. Okay, it's going to cover recruitment like we talked about before, how to go ahead and make an appointment off of an eligible list, promotions and what needs to be done in the case of a promotion. This will also define what actually is a promotion. The probationary term, and this is something that has gone under some changes recently. Actually, September of last year, the governor signed into law a new rule that made provisional service count towards probationary service. So provisional service would be when you don't have an eligible list for a title and you hire someone that then may have to take a test for that. In the meantime, once they have taken that test, that will start their probationary term. And probationary term is laid out in civil service rules. Now that provisional service is going to come off of that probationary term. So that's something that I'm going to be sending out some more information about in the next week or so. Okay, transfers. So this happens a lot, I see in the police agencies, because somebody's paying more money. Somebody, wants to work part-time someplace and full-time someplace else. So the transfers would be when you're taking someone that's in a title in one municipality and then they want to go work in another one. They can do that if they meet certain criteria without giving up their civil service seniority. Okay, layoff. I'm going to tell you right now, if you think you want to do a layoff, please don't do anything until you have contacted me, because the layoff rules are very specific. They have to do with the civil service seniority date, who you're allowed to lay off. And even once you've decided who you're going to lay off, some of those people may have rights to take positions that you are not laying off. So it's very easy to very quickly make mistakes with this. If you're doing a big layoff, sometimes the state will actually come in and help you to administer it, to make sure that you are protecting yourself from possible legal issues from doing that incorrectly. So please, if you're thinking of doing a layoff, let me know. Okay, and finally would be reinstatements are covered there as well. So this would be when someone has left the service under certain conditions, they may be able to come back without losing their civil service seniority. And those rules will explain what those conditions are. Okay, so those rules, to make any changes to that, requires a public hearing first. And then State Civil Service Commission approval, because like I said, this has the force and function of law. So it has to be treated just as if it's a new law being created. So the changes would be made by me. I would edit it as appropriate. And I will be doing that probably within this year because we do have some titles that have been created that need to be added to that, where we will be requesting permission from the State Civil Service Commission to make them non-competitive. So once the public hearing has been completed, and if there's no changes to it, I will submit it to the state and they will review it to determine whether or not my requested changes are approved. Once they are, they have the force of law, and those will be our new rules going forward. Okay, the position classification. This one is a big one because I think a lot of appointing authorities who want to create a new position will have the desire to make it a non-competitive position because maybe they have somebody in mind that they like for this job, and they don't want to have to take a test to be in the position, or they don't want to risk the person not passing the test. The problem with that is that it doesn't fall under the requirement for the merit and fitness through testing that you saw that's in our state constitution. So we can't just willy-nilly say, we want this job to be non-competitive and the state's going to say, poof, yes, it is. So Civil Service Law Section 22 gives the legal basis for the personnel officer to conduct position classification. And I'm going to reiterate on the next slide this word before any new position is created or an existing position reclassified. The proposal for doing that, including the duty statement, which you guys have a copy of in front of you. It's underneath the PowerPoint, the second document. That's where you as an appointing authority are going to outline for me what you want this new position to look like. So you're going to put your wish list of a title. You're going to put what you think you want to pay this person. You're going to explain what kind of experience you're looking for, what knowledge, skills, and abilities the person needs to be able to do, and then list out for me in detail the duties that they're doing. I will take that, review it, and I'll compare it to our existing titles. And if I find a good fit, that's what we're going to call that title. Once I give you that title, that's it. That is the title officially under civil service law. Once you get that title approved and certified by me, then you can go ahead and start advertising and hiring for that position. Okay, so again, classified before creation. So if I see in the paper you're advertising for a position that you don't have, I'm going to be contacting you and saying, I need a duty statement for that. And we'll see if that's what we're going to call it. Now, you can call things an internal name. So I know some school districts will do that where they'll have a title that they give the person, but their official title under civil service is going to be what I've given you. Okay, so it's going to be created only with the title certified, and the personnel officer has the sole authority to set those titles. And that's for every agency within our jurisdiction under Delaware County. Okay, so roles here. The structure of the position is going to be done at the appointing authority level. You might do that with other people on your board. You might do that with other people in your offices. Once you've got that duty statement done, you're going to send that to me and I'm going to certify the title for it. And from there, it's going to be time for you to create that position once I certify a title to you. And your legislative body is going to have to create that position, and you would do that at your board meetings. Yeah,
I have a question.
Sure.
Before this, say we're looking for a position, we're gonna advertise in the paper, but before we do that, this thing form has to be filled out first, given to you, and then you would come back to us, and then we could advertise.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. Okay. Jurisdictional classification. So this would be assigning positions to the competitive, non-competitive, exempt, or labor class. Those are the classified titles. or to the unclassified service. So I'll explain what that means here. Note that approval from the State Civil Service Commission is required to remove a position from the competitive class, and that is done through a rules resolution, a rules change resolution like we talked about. So every position is going to be, the state says they are born competitive. So until it's been removed from that list of competitive titles through a rules change resolution, you can assume that the position is going to be competitive. Now, there are some instances where I can tell you that they are going to approve it because, for example, you're going to see where some of the deputy titles are non-competitive. If we have a very similar type of title, we'll call that non-competitive pending jurisdictional classification. So we can consider it non-competitive because I know that the civil service, the state civil service will approve it. There are other instances where I'm going to tell you, gee, we've been testing for that title for the last 50 years. So I really don't think that the State Civil Service Commission is going to say, oh yeah, it's no longer practicable to test for that because they've had a long history of doing it. So just assume that if you want to create a new position, 9 times out of 10, it is going to be competitive to be in compliance with the state constitution. Okay, so that competitive thing. Positions for which it is practicable to determine merit and fitness of applicants by competitive examination. And you'll be amazed what the state wants to test on. There are definitely titles that do not fall under this, and we're going to get to those in a minute. But the competitive type titles are described under Civil Service Law Section 44. Again, all positions will be presumed to be competitive when created unless they are changed through a rules change resolution. Okay, so a non-competitive position would be one for which it's really not practicable to ascertain merit and fitness by competitive examination. So an example for this might be an auto mechanic. It's skilled work, so it's not going to fall under a labor type title, but it's something that you would have to test hands-on. So it's not something really that we can test by having somebody come in and just identify car parts or heavy equipment parts. It's something that we will have to test in another manner, which is through looking through their application to make sure that they meet the minimum qualifications for the position. So that's something that I would do as well. So every person that you hire, their application will go through my office for approval. And if I find that they don't meet those minimum qualifications, then that person does need to be removed from that position. So it's important to make sure that you're getting me those documents timely, because it's very awkward to have to let somebody go because they don't meet minimum qualifications after you've already hired. Okay, the next type of jurisdictional classification is an exempt position. So there's a couple different.
Question back on that last slide.
Sure.
Does that mean that each municipality, each village has to have presented you with a list of jobs in that municipality? And every time we hire somebody for those jobs, it has to go through your office?
Yes.
To assure that those appointments or hires are
Yes.
meeting those requirements.
Yes. So you will use the other form that I've given you, which is a 426A form. That is used to notify my office that you have a change in personnel. So that could be a new hire, it could be a termination, it could be a resignation or removal, change in salary, could be change in address, change in name. All of that has to come to my office on that form. A lot of municipalities will do that as it occurs so that we have it right up to the minute. Some will do it once a year where they give us the full update, which is okay, but keep in mind that if I find things that are not under the civil service law, I'm going to let you know that, and you may have to go back and fix something from several months ago. So it is in your best interest to get it to me as quickly as possible, because the sooner that you realize that something is wrong and fix it, the better. Because you much rather that I find it than state civil service does, right? Deputies of principal executive officers authorized by law to act for and in place of the principal. So these would be like a lot of our deputy department heads would fall under this category. Then also secretaries of municipal boards can be considered to be exempt under state civil service law. So if you have a secretary for your village board, for example, positions of which competitive or non-competitive examination may be found to be non-practicable. So these would be things that you can't test for in really any manner could fall under exempt. There are not a lot of titles under the civil service that are classified as exempt because of that. The majority of them are competitive. Okay, then is the labor classification. So these would be unskilled workers. These would be like your entry level custodial cleaners. You would have some of the school monitor positions would fall under this, except those that can be examined competitively. Those would be a competitive title. That's covered under civil service law, section 43. So I give some examples here from village titles. So under the classified service, an example of a competitive title would be an account clerk. There is an exam for that, has been for many years, and they will have to pass that in order to obtain permanent appointment in your jurisdiction. Non-competitive, I put this one here on purpose because it's school crossing guards. A lot of people think the school crossing guard is an employee of the school. They are not. In Delaware County, they are an employee of your village. So if one of the schools wants to have a crossing guard, they're going to need to talk to you about doing that. Good position. Maya, can you still hear me? It looks like there was a change on the microphone. Maya?
I can still hear you. Yep.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, labor type would be a cleaner. Unskilled labor, can't really test for it, right? You're gonna sit down and take a test on what a good cleaner you are. And finally, exempt, your village treasurer would fall under that category. And all of the titles that we have that are already classified as non-competitive labor or exempt are going to appear in the appendices of our civil service rules. So you can see which titles are what when you're planning to create new positions. Okay, and that is the classified service. The unclassified service would be elected officials primarily. So all of you mayors would be in the unclassified setting. So would your village board members and your village clerk. Okay, so competitive examinations. There's many different kinds, actually. The first one we're going to talk about is open competitive. So open competitive is just what it sounds like. It's open to the public to sign up to take this test. They will, the process for that is they'll send in an application to my office. We'll review it. If they have a certain set period of time to submit that application and make payment for the exam. If they do not pay, they are disqualified. If they do not meet minimum qualifications, they are disqualified. But anybody who meets that qualification has a legal right to come and sit for that exam. And we protect that right pretty seriously because very few times will I disqualify someone. And when I do that, it's only because they don't meet those minimum qualifications. Okay, we generally will use that to fill an entry level position, but because it's a career system, we also offer promotional examinations. So these are examinations that are pretty much geared towards one person or one group of people in your agency. So this would be someone that already has permanent appointment with you from either an open competitive examination or a non-competitive appointment. And it will basically have the qualifications for the position as well as promotional qualifications to take that exam. So an example might be that they would have to have met the minimum qualifications for the account clerk title and also have served maybe 2 years worth or 24 months worth of time at your agency in a lower level title. So because of that, it allows you to make it more possible to move somebody up through the ranks without making them at the mercy of the examination process to the public. So you do have to request that when you want to do that, and we'll review the case and make sure that they're actually eligible for a promotional exam. And if that's the case, then we will order that. Sometimes we order them both at the same time so that you can move your person up. And then if you have another opening, you can fill from the open competitive. The promotional list is always going to take precedence under civil service law. Okay, competitive recruitment. So we send out these exam announcements. Here's what has to be on it. The minimum qualifications so that the candidates know whether or not they're going to meet that. The subjects that are going to be on the examination, that comes from the state. So what we do when we request the exam is we send them, here's the title and here's the job spec, which has all of the job description information on it for this position. And they're going to send us back, okay, this is what we're going to test on based on that. Once we've got that information from them, we're going to put it into an exam announcement at my office, and we're going to advertise it to all of the agencies that we're required to by law. Okay, some positions do have residency requirements. And this could be specifically to participate in the exam. They may have a different residency requirement to sit for the exam versus to actually appoint. Sometimes, I'll give an example, for our corrections officers, they can be from a county that's adjoining Delaware County. Then they can also, for our deputy sheriffs, they can take the test if they're adjoining, but then they can't be appointed unless they're actually from Delaware County. So they can come sit, but if they want to take that position, then they have to move into the county. Preference and certification. This one's an important one for you as an appointing authority because it's a strategic way for you to be able to make sure that you have the right person in your position. So let's say that we did an open competitive examination and we have a really long list of people. You have someone that's from your town that is interested in doing the job and you've already worked with them before, you know they're going to be a good fit, they're on the list, but maybe they're not in the top 3 from what you see. So if you request a certification that's restricted to your residents, then within your municipality, those are the lists, the names that I will certify to you. And that will allow you to have a little bit more control over who you put in your position. And the reason that the state civil service law allows us to do that is because the idea of having public employees that are from your agency or from your municipality are going to care more. They're going to have better knowledge of the needs of your area, your town or your village. So you are allowed under civil service law to limit that result. Sometimes it's not going to make a difference because if everybody that took it is from your jurisdiction, then you're going to get everybody that took it. But that may be able to help you if you're trying to narrow down your options a little bit. Okay, so steps in the examination process. So I know we got to have an exam coming up. So the first step would be for me and for you to review the class specification. So we'll be looking at that job spec to make sure that it still matches all the duties of what we need this to do. This is something I've been doing since I started, especially with our IT titles and some of our clerical titles, because a lot of them have been really outdated. So for example, I just laid to rest the title of telephone switchboard operator. We lost our last one through attrition, and I am reclassifying that to a clerk position, which has all the same duties and then some at the same labor grade. So it's not going to affect the budget at all to make that change. And we're getting rid of an outdated title that really no longer exists. So we'll do a review of class specification. Then we'll send that to the state, order the exam. They'll send a tentative scope to the personnel office. We will send that to you. You probably get that from Brenda, who is my personnel technician. You as the appointing authority shall review and comment on that. Now, let me just give you a heads up on that. When we get the scopes, it's pretty general. If I go back to the state with, we want to edit this word or that word, they're going to say no. They want to know, is this overall correct for this position? And an example I can think of, we did an exam for a computing title, and what the scopes came back on were all like electrical engineering versus computing stuff. So that scope was just wrong. It didn't match the job spec. So we had to notify the state of that. And next time we order that exam, we're going to make sure that they see that we're not looking for an engineer to do this job. We're looking for a computing IT person. Okay. So we'll send that to you to look at it. You can basically look it over. And if it looks good to you, you can just say, yep, that looks good. If it's way off, then please let us know. Okay, then we will go ahead and do the announcement. So once the announcement is out, there's no more changes to it unless my office does a formal revision on that job or on that exam announcement. So we can't say, well, this was what we put on the announcement, but we really like this candidate, so we're going to open up this qualification. No, you cannot ever do that. The qualification is set as it is. If we are going to make changes to that qualification, it can't be in the middle of an exam because we've already advertised to the public that this is what that job is going to be looking like. This is what we're going to be expecting for that. And that's what will be on the announcement. So that is your guide. Okay. The examinations that are given by the state, many of them are written multiple choice. I will say the majority are still in this format. They have toyed around with doing some other types of examinations, and they've been looking at it a little bit more. They had at one point an idea that you were going to be able to take your civil service exam at home from any device. They quickly realized that that was going to be a lot of problems as far as tech support, as far as connectivity, as far as accessibility, because here in Delaware County, as you know, we still have a lot of residents that don't have good Wi-Fi access. So part of the civil service program is that it's open to everybody. So this is why we still offer sit-down exams on paper that are then sent to the state for scoring. And we do also offer training and experience exams. This one I really like because it states that there are some positions that you may be able to qualify better based on your experience that you've had in your life versus sitting down and taking a test on it. So one that the state has been messing around with on this is training and experience for corrections officers. And the state corrections officers have been T&E exams for several years now. And they've been initiating a pilot to do that at the local level. So we have participated in that pilot for the last 2 exams. And what we're seeing is that we're getting a lot better scores coming through. We are getting more participation, which is nice. So I think this is good because sometimes sitting down to take a written test can turn some candidates off from a position. So moving towards a training experience, it gives them credit for things that they've actually accomplished and done. So I like that. And when we do this, we are still going to be reviewing their applications and contacting references, doing background checks where needed. So, you know, you still have that other side of it too. It's not just what they are saying. With the majority of the training and experience, the state scores, there's a couple that we do locally. And we have a guide from the state or a rubric on how to do that. Okay, and then the performance, this is the least used that I've seen where the candidate would be rated on their actual ability to perform a task. It's hard to do that in a fair manner because you can't set the exact same parameters statewide for some of those. But I would say an example of that would be like the physical and agility test that is part of the police officer exam. Okay, so the eligible list, once we get those scores back, and I will tell you, if you haven't been around too long, the state can take some good amount of time to come back with your scores. Sometimes it can take up to 6 months or more to get the scores back, which is difficult because you've got employees sitting in that position that could be sweating it if they know they sat with a lot of people for that exam and they want to know if they passed or not. So once we get the scores back, we try to really quickly get that eligible list created immediately so that you have options as soon as they're available to you to make permanent appointments from that. So the duration of the eligible list, we automatically set them all at 1 year. Up to me, I can go ahead and extend it if I want to. So I might do that if I know that the state is not going to be offering another test on this for a long time and we still have a bunch of people on our list that could be appointed. I might do this if I feel that, let's say we offer the exam and there's no openings that come up for a year. Well, you know, all these people paid to take this exam. So rather than offering it again, I might just extend that list for another year and see if we can get any people hired off of that. I may not do an extension if the list is exhausted or if the candidates that are on it, I know that the appointing authorities that have those positions don't want that candidate, then I'm not going to extend it. We always use the promotional list first before the open competitive. So you should be asking, do we have a promotional list for that before you appoint off of an open competitive list? Okay, so this is how you do the appointments. And this part is really important because if you do this incorrectly, you can be sued for it. Because of the fact that it is set out in law how this is supposed to be done. And sometimes your candidates will be angry that they didn't get appointed. So they may want to take legal action against your agency about that. So it's important to know and be confident that you're making your appointments in compliance with the law. So I can help you with that, but at the end of the day, you are the appointing authority. So the responsibility rests with you to make sure that your appointments are being done according to Civil Service Section 61. So this states that appointment is going to be made from one of the 3 persons certified by me as standing highest on the appropriate eligible list for the title. So we'll do some examples and see what that looks like. So let's say you have a job opening. You're going to request a certification from me, which again, this is where communication is going to come in because I'm going to let you know that we have the scores. So then you're going to say, okay, can you certify me a list? And you're going to let me know if you want it residential or not. Okay, once you get that certified list from me, and it's not necessarily going to be that entire master eligible list that I have. Sometimes we will send you that master list ahead of time, especially for police titles, so that you can start the process of doing your background checks and doing your physical and agility. Because once they pass that physical and agility, then I can certify them to the list, because for that title, that's a part of the examination process. So then I will send you your list. You will have 60 days from which to appoint the person permanently from that list. Once the list is expired, you can't make any appointments from it. So don't let it sit on your desk past those 60 days, because that kind of hurts the candidate too, because they don't get that permanent status until they're appointed off of that list. Now I can issue you a new one if we go past that point, but you could be reducing your options, because other agencies may have the same title as you and they may have already appointed people off of that list. So you might be a little bit more limited in who you can hire if you wait to do that. So this is kind of also a little bit of a strategic conversation about, okay, at what point in those 60 days do I make my hire? Because if you've got a really great employee that you want to retain, you're going to want to make that appointment right away as soon as you get that certified list, because it gives them the benefit of that civil service seniority date and all of the benefits that go along with that. It gets them out of limbo, because they are wondering, how did I do on the test? Where am I going to fall here? So that's a good strategy if you've got a really solid candidate. But if you have a candidate that's been in the position provisionally and maybe they're not really cutting it, maybe they're still you still want to see, are they actually going to be able to do this job? You may wait until the very 60th day to permanently appoint them, because in that time period before you've done that, as long as they're not permanently appointed and haven't completed a probationary period, then they are still in at-will employment. So if you have someone that's, kind of rocky, you're not real sure if they're going to be the right fit, then you may give them that 60 days to kind of see how that plays out. Non-selected candidates have to be informed. So anybody that's certified on that list to you that you do not actually wind up hiring, you would just send them a letter or notification to let them know that. Another important thing for strategy is no obligation under the law to actually make an appointment. So let's say you have a totally vacant position, there's nobody in it, and you get a list and there's 3 candidates on the list and not a single one of them is somebody that you want to hire. If you want to, you can leave that vacancy open. You can't legally put somebody else in it while there's an active list, but you do not actually have to put someone in that position if it's not going to work out. So know that. Okay, so this is the rule of 3, and this is another thing that has been called into question for decades about civil service, because a lot of appointing authorities would like to have a rule of 5 or a rule of 10, where they could have a larger group of people that they could choose from their candidates. The state has been pretty firm that they want to stick with that rule of 3, because it goes along with the constitutional requirement of merit and fitness, saying that the top 3 scorers are going to be the most fit and have the most merit for that position. So who is reachable? It's going to be 3 names from the very top of the eligible list. So everybody ranked above or tied in score with the 3rd candidate is reachable. So this is good to know, because if you wind up with a lot of people that are tied with that 3rd candidate, now you have more options. So may I appoint in the top 3 scores? Not necessarily. Only people that are ranked above or tied in score with the 3rd candidate from the top of the list can be appointed. So we'll do some examples here. You'll see some of the exams are band scored, which means that the scores are grouped together in usually 5-point intervals. So here's some examples of some band scored results. So Julia, Nelson, and Linda are your top 3. Nobody is tied with Linda. So the top 3 are going to each have their own separate score. These are the only 3 that are reachable. So if this is my master eligible list from this exam and you have 1 opening, I'm going to only certify you these 3. If you have 2 openings, now I need to make sure that you still, let's say you have 2 openings and you hire Julia. You only have 2 to choose from, so you don't have a mandatory list anymore. So I have to certify you to the next one down, which is Horace. And in this case, Horace has 2 other people that scored evenly with him. So your certified list for 2 positions is going to have all of these candidates on it, and you can hire from the top 3. So Julia's gone, so you could hire any one of these people. on that second hire.
So it doesn't matter if they were second, third, fourth, or fifth, you still could pick one of that three.
Because they tied in
You
score.
tied the score.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm. And we'll see an example like that. So in this example, they all scored the same in the top three. So for one position, that's what I'm going to certify to you. For two, that's what I'm going to certify to you. And for three, I probably could just do that because you still would have enough candidates there. But I may put Doug on there if I think you're going to have other openings. Okay, example 3. So here's a case where we have some tie scores towards the top. So Lori is 85, so was Marie, Dan, and Joe. So all of these people are equally appointable because they all have that same top 3 score. So your certification is going to have those names on it, and these candidates are going to be reachable. Okay, so let's say that you didn't do that. Let's say that you appointed somebody that was not reachable on that list. I'm going to let you know that, and you're going to have to tell that poor person, I'm sorry, but we have to offer this position elsewhere. So before you do that, what I would recommend is that you offer the position to the other candidates. If none of them want to take it, then you can possibly get that person into your top 3 by having others decline the position. Okay, provisional appointments. So these are really only authorized in the absence of an eligible list. And that might mean that there is no list at all, or it might mean that we have a broken list or a non-mandatory list, which would mean there's less than 3 names on it. So in that case, I can still certify it to you with only 2 names. You can appoint permanently off of it if you want to, but you don't have to. So let's say those 2 candidates are candidates that you don't want, you've interviewed them already, or they've already said that they don't want the job. Then you can hire somebody provisionally. Provisional appointments cannot go on forever. It's a limited duration. We have to kick off the examination process within 30 days. So that means you hire, I order the exam within 30 days. Okay, and then the termination situation would only come up if, a couple things, if that person takes the exam and does not pass it, and you have a mandatory list that you must hire from, then you're going to have to let that person go. If they refuse to sit for the exam or they do not show up, it is in our civil service rules that a failure to show for an exam is tantamount to a refusal. So even if they slept late, doesn't matter. If grandma died, they didn't notify anybody, it doesn't matter. If they do not show up for that exam, it's tantamount to a refusal, and they will be removed from the position, which is in our exam announcement. So if anybody ever questions it, we can go back and show them that is part of our exam announcement. You were notified. They can contact us, and there's a deadline to do that, to let us know for extenuating circumstances. If they're ill, we can do an alternate test date for some of the tests. That's up to my office to administer that. Okay, so if they're not on that eligible list and you do have a mandatory list, then you're not going to be able to reappoint them. Let's say that they were the only ones who took it, so they didn't pass it. There is no list. You may reappoint them provisionally. You don't have to. You may reappoint them provisionally once. Now, let's say they take it a second time and they fail it again. You may now, and there's still no list, you may now reappoint them provisionally one last time with my approval. And a lot of times I will, especially if there's somebody that has been working for you. If they've taken the test twice, they've probably been there for at least a year or more. You know, if they're your person and you want to give them another shot, I will support that and I will approve that. But if the person really is not working out for you and you'd rather go look for another provisional candidate, then we can say, no, we're not going to do that. And they're going to be terminated and removed from the position for lack of merit and fitness is the reason. And that would be a legal termination under civil service law. Okay, there is also such a thing as a temporary appointment. So the temporary appointments are kind of to be used sparingly. They're not supposed to go on for a long period of time, and they're not really to be used to get around the testing process. So there's a temporary position that lasts for 0 to 3 months. you can fill that without even, like, let's say there's an eligible list, you don't even have to use it if your position is only going to be 3 months long, which maybe could happen if you have like a special project that you're working on and you need to bring in a retiree to help you with that. That might be an example that you might do that. A 3 to 6 months long appointment, you do have to use the eligible list, but you don't have to follow the rule of 3. If it's going to go on beyond 6 months, then yes, you do. If there is an eligible list. If not, then they can be hired provisionally as a temporary as well. Okay, the rights of your employees. So we'll talk a little bit about the probationary term. This is again pursuant to the local civil service rules. So the probationary term is like a two-way street. After a person gets appointed off of a civil service list, they will start their probationary term. During that time, you have a responsibility to kind of coach them along, give them information about how they can improve, do reviews with them, employee evaluations with them so that they know where they're at. If they also have an obligation to demonstrate that they are prepared to do the job. And the reason that the probationary term is allowed is because the state civil service recognizes that just because someone is a good test taker doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to come and perform well in your job. They may have personality issues where they're clashing with everybody and it's just not working out. You will be able to remove them during that probationary term. Once that is up, removal becomes a different animal because of the protection of the Section 75 law, which is part of civil service law. So discipline, the definition of discipline under the civil service, it covers anything where you're actually taking an action against an employee. So it could be a demotion, it could be actual removal, it could be suspension, with or without pay. So those would be examples of discipline. Pulling someone aside to talk to them about their behavior as a verbal conversation is called a verbal counseling. That is not discipline under the civil service law. Even doing a written memorandum of counseling and putting that in their file is not considered to be discipline under the civil service law. And this is important because if it was, then you would have to do Section 75 procedures every single time that you needed to tell somebody, hey, we need you to step this up a little bit. So what is entailed in Section 75? Again, if you're looking at doing anything disciplinary, please feel free to contact me if you have questions. You're going to want to also review the law. It involves setting charges out against the employee, notifying them of those charges. You have to do a hearing in which you have to demonstrate the proof of those charges before you can go ahead and do your termination. So if you just decide, this candidate or this employee is not working out for me, I want them gone, and you fire them on the spot, if they had Section 75 rights and you have not observed those rights, they can come back at you for a wrongful termination and they will win.
So for an example, excuse me, if a position is part-time and you find a need that you want that position full-time, you're not taking a punitive approach to that employee, but you're increasing the scope of that title. I mean, what's the navigation there? What are the rights as the part-time employee?
Okay, so in a case like that, you're essentially abolishing the part-time position and creating a full-time one. So you would actually want to look at the layoff and demotion sections of the civil service law. So if you have a situation like that, contact me and I'll help you kind of navigate that. Okay. And also I will say right now, I'm not a lawyer. I do not give legal advice. I can point you to places in the law that I think that you should look at that apply to your situation. But you will often hear me tell you right up front, you're going to need to contact your attorney about this. Okay. But I will give you good questions to ask them.
I think we had a discussion. If we have a position that is, say, part-time now, but the board decides that we now need to make this a full-time position, we can then the part-time position would be, if we told the person that we're making it full-time, that person would probably have a right to apply for it, or if he couldn't do it, then we still have to go through that.
I think that would be a good idea in that case, because you want to make sure that you consider all
Yeah.
avenues so that you don't wind up backing yourself into a corner. Because
Okay.
when you're trying to make changes like that, usually there's a reason. You're trying to address an issue. So you want to make sure that your actions are actually going to address that issue versus create more issues. Okay, so there's another consideration too when it comes to discipline, which would be an alternate disciplinary procedure as maybe outlined in a union contract. So for those of you that are unionized, your union contract may have rules in it having to do with the disciplinary procedure. Best practice, and what I do see in a lot of different contracts, is the requirement for progressive discipline. So before you went to your Section 75 hearing, you would want to be able to lay out all the times when you dealt with this before. So that comes down to carefully documenting when there's issues that come up, fully investigating any issues that may come up, and making sure that you have kept record of that so that if you need to take it to a Section 75 hearing, you have the evidence that you need to demonstrate that you have actually gone through all of this. So this is very different for any of you that have worked in the private sector. I actually came from the private sector before I started working for the county. So my experience with Section 75 when I first started was very little. Because this doesn't exist in the private sector. In the private sector, it's at-will employment. They're not working out for you, you're out the door in New York State. Does not work like that here. So please, if you are thinking that you want to make changes like that or do disciplinary action and you haven't done it before, let me know what you got in mind, because I may have some recommendations for you to handle it smoothly under civil service. Okay. So Section 75 would cover permanent employees. So your provisionals do not have these rights. And people that are still on a probationary term, in our civil service rules, it outlines that the permanency of that position does not go into effect until the probationary period is over. And once it is completed by the candidate, then that probationary service will be retroactive to the start of their permanent appointment. So that's a little confusing. They're permanently appointed, but they're not really permanent until their probationary period is done, and then they're permanent back to when you appointed them. This is important if you've got somebody that's in that probationary period and you do not want to keep them on, because you're going to need to know for certain whether or not they're subject to Section 75 or not before you terminate. Also, the rest of the classified service. So they could be in another type versus competitive. So they could be non-competitive labor. If they're a veteran that has served in time of war or an exempt volunteer firefighter, then they are automatically given Section 75. That's through state law. Okay. For those non-competitive or labor class, they used to not have Section 75 rights at all. Then that has been updated. So they now have, if they have done 5 years of continuous service. So that's much longer than the average probationary period, which is usually 6 months. So unless they are designated as a policy influencing or confidential person in the non-competitive or labor class, then if they've got 5 years of service, then they also have Section 75 rights. So a lot of times I'll get a phone call from an appointing authority saying, I want to terminate so-and-so. Do they have Section 75 rights? I will look at their appointment date. I will see if they're still under probation or not, and I will let you know. I may ask you, are they a veteran? Are they a firefighter? That's why I'm asking you that, to see if they have Section 75 rights. Okay, transfers. These are also pursuant to the local rules. So if you are thinking you might want to do one, let's say you get a candidate that says, oh, I'm working over at so-and-so's municipality and I want to come and work for you and do the same job. That would be somebody that would be considered for a transfer. So what we need for that is we need the candidate to request to be transferred. We need the appointing authority to request that they want to be transferred. So you can just, send an email or a letter requesting that. Then from my office's end, we are going to request from their other municipality, and it could be in a different county. We're going to ask for the exam scopes that they took, if it's a competitive position, and we're going to ask for the job spec that they did. So if the qualifications of the position that they were in before and the scopes are identical to ours, then I can approve them for a transfer. And they've continuously been employed, because if they quit working for 10 years, they're not going to be eligible for transfer. If they do not match exactly, then I'm going to have to send it to the state for review. So no preferred list can exist, because otherwise you've got to hire off of that. No departmental promotional list can exist, otherwise you gotta hire off of that and can't transfer. The scopes and quals have to be identical, and then the state would approve if different. For this also, your candidate still has to meet minimum qualifications because, you know, they might not meet that if a different municipality has a different qualification. All of the Delaware County ones are going to have the same because they all go under our local rules and our job specs. But not every county is like that, especially counties that have a city, because a lot of the cities will have their own municipal civil service commission. So we don't deal with that because we have no cities in Delaware County, but that can happen. Okay, so transfers must be approved by me before you do them. Layoff is covered under Civil Service Section 80. And this is a great example of changes at the state level, because they are making some expansions to this, to the protections that are covered under Section 80 that are going into effect in a matter of days. And they have still not sent any guidance to us about them, though they said that they would be. So we'll be looking out for that. As soon as we get that, we will pass that along to all of you. The general idea of this is last in, first out. Okay, you're going to use the civil service rules to implement it. Once I get that guidance, I'm going to see if I need to make any changes to our rules with the rules change resolution. It's going to define for you in those rules what your layoff unit would look like. So that's the people that are getting laid off is your layoff unit. And it may be a certain class of titles, like maybe you are getting rid of an agency and you no longer need any of your police officers, then you would be laying them off. That would be your layoff unit. Okay. You also are going to have to look to see who's permanent and who's not, because obviously those without permanent status are out first. Those with permanent status, then you're going to be looking at their civil service seniority date. Those who have a higher seniority are going to have some rights that may mess with your plans a little bit for what you're trying to do. Because let's say that you are really happy with all of your employees except for this one group that you want to lay off. Well, if the person that you're laying off has a higher seniority than somebody that's not in the layoff unit, they can bump their position if it's directly under it in promotional rank. Let's say there are no openings in any of the positions that are directly below that, then they may be able to retreat, which would be to go back to the last permanent title that they held. And it's similar to bumping, but it doesn't have to be the next promotional ladder position down. So when you start a layoff, it's going to kickstart a chain of events and rights for those candidates. It's not like, thank you, bye-bye, we'll call you when we need you. It's a procedure that you have to follow to make sure that everybody gets what's coming to them under the civil service law, because if you don't do that, you're opening yourself up to liability. Okay. Reporting responsibilities. So under the civil service law, section 95, it outlines the importance of your responsibilities. So it shall be the duty of all officers to conform and comply with and to aid in all proper ways in carrying into effect the provisions of the chapter and rules, regulations prescribed thereunder. So what that is saying is that anything that is asked of you by me on behalf of the State Civil Service Commission under the civil service law, you are expected to assist with in whatever way that you can. So if I say to you, I need an updated list of your roster so I can make sure it matches mine, we need you to send that in. If I tell you it's time to do a payroll certification so I can make sure that everybody has the correct salary list in my records compared to yours, then you got to send me that payroll certification. If I tell you we're lacking an application for so-and-so that you appointed on this date, can you send me a 426A and an application for that person so I can check their min quals? You got to send that in to me. So what happens if you don't? There are some rules under here that basically state that no public officer, that would be you, will be reimbursed by the state or any of its civil divisions for any sums in illegally paid or recovered in such an action. So let's say that you make an illegal appointment and your municipality has been paying that person for that whole period of time. If the municipality wants to, they can say, gee, Mayor, you just made an illegal appointment. We don't want to pay for that. The taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for that. That's going to come out of your pocket. And the State Civil Service Commission can enforce that. So that's important to know because there's few things that, you have no real legal recourse for insurances or from taxpayer dollars to pay that. No, it comes out of your pocket because it's your responsibility. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you're doing things the right way. And if you have questions, to ask them. I have never seen this actually done. That doesn't mean it can't ever be done. I'm going to work with you to try to get the information that we need. Most of the time, people are not trying to do things wrong. There's a lot of rules here, so it's easy to mess this up. So I'll work with you to try to get things back on the straight and narrow. If you're not willing to do that, then I will need to go to the State Civil Service Commission and we will need to address it. Okay. So this basically states that no one shall be appointed or employed in any position in the classified service until they have passed an examination or have been exempted from such examination. So this is basically covering, again, your responsibility to make sure that those appointees cover that merit and fitness requirement. Okay, and that they shall furnish any such other information as the Civil Service Department or Municipal Commission may require. So we're a team. None of this happens without me. None of this happens without you. So that's where that communication comes in. Okay, your employment roster, we will keep a copy of that. You should keep one too for your records. We contain detailed employment history of each employee. Now, can you do discipline at your level without notifying me? Yes. If you have gone through your attorney and you're confident this is what you want to do, you can go ahead and do that. If you're going to remove them, you got to notify me. If you're going to demote them, you got to notify me because that's going to change that roster. So my roster for our outlying agencies typically is very simple, and it's just basically a history of their employment with you, when they got appointed, what titles they've had, where their changes of salary have been, etc. Okay, so here's my contact information. You have it on the last page of your presentation notes. You can always feel free to reach out to me at my email or office number. I will make a quick effort to get back to you. I'm a really strong researcher, so if you have something that you know is an issue and you need ideas on, where to even start, you can call me and I'll start hitting the books and finding these are laws that you might want to look at. These are sections in your rules. I'll jog you to check your contracts or any agreements that you might have in place. So as I can be a good sounding board, somebody to help you when you're kind of in that situation of, well, shoot, we got to do something. What are we going to do? Give me a call and we can start bouncing some ideas around. I'll try to help you avoid some pitfalls and I'll tell you when it's time to call your lawyer. Okay, anybody have any questions for
You
me?
said you gotta give us a copy of the local rules.
Yes.
You got my email address.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get that list from
I'll
Kim.
type the list and I'll email it.
Okay. Good.
Great. So I'll send that out to everybody. It's also on our website, but sometimes it's nice to be able to just put it right on your desktop, have it handy.
And one other question, the duties statement. If we have some questions before we fill it out wrong, we can talk to Brenda or you just to give us a little tips on it.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that, like you have like an existing position or a new position. That could be sometimes
Gray area.
a gray area.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Yeah, you're absolutely encouraged to contact us for help with creating positions too, because we might already have a title that kind of fits what you're trying to do. Or maybe we have two titles and you're thinking of kind of combining those duties. So we'll talk about what are the benefits of doing that, what could be the downfall of doing that. We try to keep the titles broad, which means that we can use them in multiple agencies. That means it will allow you to assign the duties that are needed for those positions. That allows you to have greater flexibility in doing transfers as well. So that kind of keeps a little bit more flexibility in the system to do it that way. But there are times when you're going to need a position that's going to be very specific that we just don't have need for in other agencies. Examples that we have like that, we've got plenty at the county. For example, like the dispatcher title, we don't have that widely used by the outside agencies. another one I'm thinking of, we could have, you know, a deputy to a department head. You're not going to have that in your outside agencies, things like that. So yeah, we are here. We are a tool to help you to make sure that you're compliant. No question is a dumb question. No question is a bad question. The more you ask, the more you know.
Are there positions that could be either civil service or not civil service?
So some positions that are not considered to be civil service would be like in a school district, the teachers, they fall under NICED, not civil service. However, the teacher aides are a civil service title. LTAs are under NICED. So you might not know that, especially if you're, you know, just starting out on a school board, for example. And those kinds of information are very important because you're gonna have to look, if you need to do discipline or a removal, you're gonna have to look at your union contracts and you're gonna have to see what union they fall under. You're gonna have to look, are they Section 75? Are they subject to Section 75? So there's a lot of considerations before, you know, you just kind of go shooting from the hip to make changes. So it's important to have a little bit of an overview of those things, and my office is here to help you do that. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you, very thorough, thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. Hopefully this will head off some issues for everybody.
Well, we can't say we weren't told.
That's right. Do I just end the screen share here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Presentation.
Well, I'm sorry.
Is there gonna be another presentation?
Not by me. I don't know about the rest of the group. Let me shut that off for a minute. Thank you, Jeff, for inviting me. This was nice to get to meet everybody and put some faces to names.
That's good, thank you. Now, we got a face with the conversation now.
Yes.
Both ways. Take care.
If you ever do need to visit her office, it's right across from mine.
Yeah.
So if you need, you can
Yeah.
stop at at Delhi Village. I'll walk you over and show you where her office is. And
We've had a few conversations already, which is very helpful. Her and Brenda, very helpful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
yes. Jim, do you have anything that you wanted to address the group with?
No, nothing today. I did, with everything that happened, I said at the last meeting that I was gonna have the consultant here, and I did call that off.
Very good. I guess the next task is a discussion of the letter which we all received from Tina. I will preface all of this simply by saying that this group has, to this point, taken no action. We have issued no requests. We have issued no orders. All we as a group have done has been to discuss. Expressing as many different options, talking to as many different people as we can. I did not think that we had done anything to receive a letter of this magnitude. Our intention has been, to this point, to be cooperative, see if we can address things in a cooperative manner. I'm not sure that the letter that we received was in that same tone or manner. But I think that our course that we've set for ourselves has been a good one. I think that for the time being, that our approach should remain in place of being, again, cordial, cooperative, trying to find a resolution to our needs, again, in a cooperative manner. I don't know if everybody's of that same ilk, but
I agree, feel the same way. Anybody I spoke to, I said, look, we're not looking to recreate the wheel. I said, we want to become a spoke in that wheel, make it stronger, that we can work together, cooperative, like we're saying. Like I said, we just discussed these things. We haven't written any formal letters to any place to make any kind of actions. We were just discussing them up. We just started as a group. You know what I mean? We're just trying to get our foundation together. And the basic stuff that we asked for, a couple of things that we're talking about. And it's not something that is not done anyplace else, that the talk that we had regarding foreclosures and the talk that we had regarding part of these state tax, sales tax money is something that's being done in 98% of the state of New York. So we're just joining the team that's been around for a long time, and we're learning as we're going along, and we want to work cooperatively with everybody. And I think that's what we're all trying.
we're all serving the same, or in large part, the same constituency. It's not as if we need to be each other's throats over trying to help the same people.
We want to work together, that's all. I mean, if they did some of the talk that I had heard coming from the county, but they have a large sum of money in a certain place. And I spoke to somebody, they said, well, if you take some of that and put it in the night class that we have, and you could probably make the money that we're looking, some kind of money that we're looking for in a few months in just an interest, and it wouldn't affect the total amount at all. I mean, we're not looking for millions of dollars. We're saying, you know, say we got $100,000. It's not a lot of money when you're talking 30, 40 billion dollars you're getting in sales tax. And it make us like we're part of the family. You know, I mean, you feel happy, you know, and we could work, we could get a lot of things done, and it would help us. We just want to work together. I think. What do you guys think? Come on, somebody will say something.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Obviously, that's the mold is taken. I think we should continue our course. I will say, I guess I didn't know when our conversations were being recorded that they were getting sent out to everybody. I had to answer a few questions. I'll be honest, like bankruptcy. I said, here, we could go bankrupt. Next thing I know, I'm dealing with the paper that they're gonna print that we could go bankrupt. I fought to get that out of there, but quite honestly, if she didn't call and ask me, we didn't have a conversation, I'd have printed, I'd had employees going crazy. Something that was said here that I didn't even know was gonna make the press, to be honest with you. I guess I was a little irritated by that.
I'm not sure. I believe that we are subject to open meeting.
Which is fine, yeah.
Yeah, we are.
It's fine,
Yeah, so
it's fine. Yep.
Does she represent the will of the board? She's one person, despite the fact that she is the board chair. I don't know. I think we really, our approach should be to approach the respective supervisors, at least to let them know the, you know, the concern. I knew her back when, and she seems to have allowed, there's an open mic meeting, but then I'm retiring, but she seems to have allowed that her position to have taken on stronger positions than she originally had taken. It's gone to her head. And I think that, you know, I think there isn't a way of circumventing what she has put out in writing by going to essentially soliciting a response from each of the supervisors, or at least making them aware of how important it is that and there is a sharing of resources between the towns and the villages, and we do that now. This should be just consistent with that, especially in respect to the fact that the village is the town and the town is the village, you know, that the majority of the population benefits from that type of resource sharing because of the people who live in the village. So that's my ramble.
And I'm sorry, guys, who are we talking about when we refer to Chief Kuzinski?
Tina Maloney.
The chairman of the board of supervisors.
You should have got a letter from her. If you
I
don't,
haven't
we have
seen
a
it.
copy.
They didn't get a copy, oh, no.
I've got 4 total copies.
I would strongly encourage, I know that Maya and I have been in contact and we've established at least a beginning relationship, starting to work with the town and the village together. And I kind of agree with Tom at this point. I think it's important that each one of us contact town supervisor in which we exist. I know that there, but to establish that relationship and get that support would be a large step in us moving forward.
I have done the same. I actually had already reached out and had several conversations with my town supervisor.
I will reach out.
I think we've got to just continue on the way we were. I mean, I was contacted a week or so ago from the other paper, and there's actually quite a lengthy article in there. And kind of reiterated what we said now, that we're just looking at a lot of different avenues and looking for ways to help all our villages, a lot of which are financial.
The fact that for the most part, we've been relegated to only being able to address our financial needs through property taxes, and that's a very limiting factor for the villages. I do know that in talking again with some people that some of the individuals who have objections are towns that don't have villages because they feel that they would be cut out of this and wouldn't receive money, etc. I personally have no objection to the towns receiving some money as well.
Hey, there's enough to go around, so
Yeah.
yeah, give everybody, you know, doesn't matter.
But I know that the villages are in somewhat of a desperate need to expand their possibilities for revenue in order to remain sustainable.
Are the towns already getting some money from the state, from the county already? As far as the
As
sales tax?
far as I understand it, the county gets the revenues from the state taxes. And however they distribute it themselves, I don't know, it's not, we're never part of it, so. They, I think last year was
33 million.
$32 million they got from them, which is a nice amount of sums. So, I mean, we just asked, we're gonna ask for this little portion of it, so that, for us, even like $100,000, I just use that number because it's a big point, you know, for like the village, Walton, we're one of the biggest villages, Delhi, you know, and of course, Sydney. For us, 12, almost 13,000 is 1 point on our tax. So you can imagine if you get 100,000, 10 points, that's a lot we could do with that. Because we're all the villages, as you know, we're struggling, we're just barely making it to hit our budget. Because now, and recently, as you know, the DPW prices have gone through the roof and we have to maintain them. The police prices have gone, costs have gone through the roof. And not even just the regular maintenance of everything is gone. You know, everything we buy now is gone. The wastewater treatment plant, the cost has gone through the roof. The city is finding out how much they're gonna give us and stuff, so we don't wanna just keep putting it all on the taxpayers, you know, and a lot of our taxpayers pay the state tax too, the villages. And so it would be nice to get some of it back to help out, that's all. I think we all should work together. If we work together, we can get a lot of things done, rather than being controversial, be agreeable. Let's all, you know, work together.
Are you still there, Maya?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have anything to add to that as a supervisor?
Not specifically. I just feel really lucky that you and I have started off on, the good foot and, have continued to explore different ideas. And I hope that some of the other supervisors are receptive to that. I mean, it would be nice to have a formal shared services agreement. In that letter, I feel like I learned more about shared services just in those few pages than I have in asking questions. So, I think only good can come from sharing information and working together.
Thank you. So when we say that we should continue upon the same path, what's our next step?
Well, just my opinion, but I mean, if this thing with the sales tax has been an issue throughout the county already, so obviously we should be preparing some kind of letter asking either go meet within the committee to sit down or tell them that we're interested in seeing that we could have some type of.
Would it be beneficial for, again, each of us to speak with our respective county supervisors that we reside within and find out exactly what their position is on this issue, to know where we stand in our approach to the county?
We could do that.
Could we create a fact sheet or a position statement that so we could be talking essentially about the same thing and go to our counterpart?
Sure. Is there anybody that would like to put that together? I think a lot of it is based upon what we've already said. We've talked about before that, we're one of 3 out of 62 counties that don't receive aid. Yes, we don't have a city, but there are 7 counties that don't, and 4 of those still manage to share with their counties the sales tax revenue.
Do you know how many counties that do share with their villages? You know how many counties in the state do this, or how many don't?
Well, there's 55 that have cities within them, so they're forced by state law to share. There are.
Okay, so the ones with cities are mandated by law to do it.
Yeah. Which Delhi has talked about forming a city, but as I've said before, there are a lot of things that go with that. I'm not sure we're ready to take on. The school district becomes a responsibility of the city that you don't have as a village, and
that's a biggie.
That's a biggie. And there are some other responsibilities that go along with that as well, that I don't think the village of our size is really ready to take on. I'm not sure there is a village within Delaware County that's ready to do that. So we have to look for alternative means. I did speak with Senator Overocker a little over a week ago. I had to sit down with him and we talked for over an hour and a half. I did bring some of our concerns as a group, not just the village of Delhi's, but the mayors as a group as well. He is certainly sympathetic. he has mentioned some figures, that he kind of had in mind.
Would he
He's
be,
going to
would
take
he,
it on-
is he somebody that would be willing to come to us and talk to us?
I can ask as well.
Cause he then would be talking to the whole county,
Right.
so I think that could be beneficial. He took over Bonsack. I mean, I remember with Bonsack, every year we got 100,000, 100-some thousand, we put it through and try to get grants. Since he's been gone, we got nothing. And I called a few times, so it might be something.
I think it may be time for us to ask, to have many of the representatives.
Right.
Tag might, if we can ask again to the other representatives, Monaros.
They come now that we're officially approved and
Yeah.
it's a different ballgame.
Should we ask them to come first, or should we form a letter and send it to the county officially asking for the sales tax? Revenue, and then get them on board.
Thoughts?
I would have to think about that. I'm not sure.
Can I make a suggestion? Not a mayor, village trustee.
Oh, then shut up.
I know that the state controller's office issued a study on the subject of sales tax. So maybe someone from their office, I know they have regional representatives, could do a nuts and bolts
If we could
presentation.
get somebody here to,
That would be great.
that would be great.
Yeah.
I could,
Let me know when you have any successful turn on the agenda for the next meeting, if we can.
I'll reach out immediately.
My meeting's on the top of the agenda, March 13th.
Right. March 13th.
Yep.
My initial reaction is that before I start going to the, making requests, I like to have all guns loaded, so to speak. I don't wanna, and I don't mean that in a negative way or in an aggressive way. I just mean, I wanna have my full information. I wanna know what ground I'm standing on beforehand. If we've got additional information to get, that would be another information source. That would be great.
No, I think that's a great idea, so, yeah.
That would be wonderful.
That would give us all the answers that we need before we take the next step.
Yes.
And in the meantime, we still could all talk to our individual supervisors and say what we're looking to do and get their opinion. And then if we get someone from the state comes out, then we've got it all together, then we can go ahead with our package.
I honestly think that if we can get a grassroots movement from within the supervisors themselves, that would go a long way toward moving us forward.
They are the legislators and they have the power decision.
So should we come prepared for our next meeting to hear from this gentleman? I will also reach out to a couple of the legislators, see if they can be here as well, because they can support whatever's being presented from this gentleman. Maybe they can add to it. If there's someone from the state sales tax that's going to be adding something, and at that point, we can begin to put together a request for the county. With the background knowledge that we do have some support there. That sounds like a reasonable.
Yes, sounds good.
Sounds good.
There are a couple of people, I will reach out to Rob. I'll try and get a hold of Andy again. We're also missing deposit in Hancock.
I'll reach out to Hancock. I mean, the deposit is tough. I mean, because they got, I was trying to think as I'm sitting down here, because for them to come, probably would be better to go on 88. It should be a straight shot, right down to Delhi when they went that way. Because to go through Hancock and then they come to Walton, they go to Delhi, I think that's a long, it's a long short. right?
So for them, it would be up to Bennington on 88.
Yeah, 88, they're
Deposit
right,
only
deposit right by
had-
88.
No, actually, they can come up the reservoir, and deposit can come straight up the reservoir to all.
Oh, can they?
Yeah.
I don't know which is the
Yeah.
shorter way up.
I think right up, and they could come to
Reservoir.
Sydney, but honestly, they can get to Walton quicker, and it's closer from Walton to Delhi than it is from Sydney.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, same distance.
Oh, okay.
between Deposit
Make that
Walton
way.
versus deposit in Sydney.
And as Kim just pointed, I know the deposit mayor came in to the Zoom.
Yeah,
meeting
yeah.
for the first meeting.
Right, I spoke to him 4 or 5 times, and he's very, very supportive. He said they're all for it.
And I think Hancock is.
Actually, I spoke to Sean all the time, he works during the day, and the other guy who was here last time, he was working, he couldn't get off, so that's why. But they're gonna try as if they have somebody every meeting, because they think it's important. as well.
And I know Stanford's supportive. The only one that we're not sure of is Hobart.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him, do,
It's hard to get a hold of him. He doesn't, I believe he and his wife run the ambulatory service out of Hobart.
Circle of life.
Yeah, they do.
The Circle of Life. I believe, and I know they're very busy with it,
or
so
maybe get somebody on the board to come too, I mean, I think sometimes they,
I don't know how big a board they have.
well, does anybody here know him?
I do, I'll reach out.
Could you reach out to
I'll
him?
reach out to him.
And so even if the secretary or the treasurer or somebody from the board can come, anybody.
I'll reach out to him.
Thank you.
And I'll get a hold of Rob and
Yeah, and I'll
so
talk to
we
you.
discuss that. Do we have an account?
Well, we could have, if we had something to put in it. I talked to MBT and they seem to think they'd be able to do it, they just need a letter that we passed to set up an account.
Okay.
You know, as a letterhead, and they thought that they could do it that way.
And then we would need to know how to address and attribute the $500
Right.
fee, but to you. You just let us all know.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can get that going, that's easy enough, I just checked on that, and that was the only one that I found. That wanted to at least make the account.
Sounds good.
We need to have a letterhead. Our own,
We have the one that was given to us that we
so
signed that
that the
letter.
one's gonna be the,
Did you want to address the information that you got, that you sent me this morning?
oh, yeah, well, I'll, it's gonna be in the report tomorrow, I mean, today, tomorrow, I guess, anyway. Oh, yeah. We had sent first of all, we were talking about doing a shared service from LaBerge. And Jim has reached out and spoke to Wayne Marshfield. Wayne Marshfield from Hamden said that he would, we did a letter, he would take it to the committee to see if some of the opera money funds could be used. So that, because it was $80,000 they want, 40,000 was gonna go to the community foundation, and the other, they first, the county, you first told me the county agreed 20,000 at first, that was, we said Tina, right? And then he said, send a letter to this fund, and we'll see if we can give you the 40,000. They met yesterday, and they refused to go. They did a few other things, and a couple of them spoke against it. Tina did, and Art Merrill, I think, did, and my supervisor did, Joe Setter. And so they did not approve it. That's where we are right now. It'll be in the paper. It's online in the paper now. You can read that article. And we gave it a shot. We tried. You know, I was hoping they would, but you know, ARPA money is nice because it's money you can use, you have. So, but I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if they did it because they're resistant because of the group, how we approached it. But we did it nice, but I don't know if it's because of this. That I don't know why, but they did. So that's where we are right now. I'm sorry. He did say also, Wayne, that he would be willing for us to go to the next meeting to sit down and discuss. So I'm assuming you and me, if you want to go. I feel very strongly about, yes, why not? What are we gonna do? We're not, I'll go and talk and say what we're looking for, and we're not looking to be arbitrary, we're just looking to, if you have something, maybe we can do it. Come up with something. At least explain our point, and they can see that we're not being arbitrary, we're not looking to argue, we're not looking to fight, we're looking to just be part of and see if we can do something together. Because with that study, I don't know if they realized that, I was reading it again, that when we do this kind of study, it opens up a lot of opportunity for us to get grant money throughout the state and the county and the government, federal grants. So it is expensive, but in the long run, if you can get a lot of funds, grants and things like that, which will end up helping us tremendously, it would help the county as well. Because especially with code enforcement, things like that, I know they're looking to do something with code enforcement. That could be a really big thing to help us both. So we could do it, use it for both of us. So that's my.
You know what the next meeting is?
No, I guess we're gonna have to reach out to
Yes,
Wayne.
it was in there,
Oh, I forgot,
yeah. Let's see, I think we're-
March 6th.
It's the 6th.
yeah, March, yeah, rings a bell, yeah.
1:00.
1 o'clock. So if you wanna go, I'll go with you and,
Put it on my calendar.
I'll come with you and we'll go and just go and see.
It was. Apparently Glenn spoke in favor of our proposal.
Yes, I think because of what Glenn said, brought thing about us coming back to have a meeting.
It looks to me, based on some of the numbers that they presented, that there isn't a lot of ARPA money left for them to allocate.
Right now,
So a $40,000 request based upon what's left may be a significant portion of what they're looking at. They also, but I also know that they gave $10,000 for the range.
yes,
here
for
in
the
Delaware.
bath,
So. The next meeting is April 9th. 10:30.
April 9th, for the,
It says the next ARPA committee meeting will be
oh, so
held
it's
at
April, okay, I thought it was. March.
10:30, April 9th.
Okay, then we'll go April 9th, we'll be there.
No, what's March 6th then? Or is
That
that?
would be a board.
That's
Board meeting,
Board of
okay.
Supervisors meeting.
Okay.
So April, then we're gonna go through one for that, in late March, okay.
Rather than just focusing on this one thing, I think there's some other things that we should be considering as well. I know we had talked earlier in our meetings about the possibility of looking at engaging a grant writing service on behalf of the villages. I know my board has been very supportive of all of this, and one of the questions that they're now starting to ask when we started looking at our budget. I don't know how many of you started your budget process for next year yet. He's going little. Some of the items that mentioned, such as the purchase of vehicles, would we be able as a county, villages, to work together to pool our vehicle needs to ask for a bid together as a unit? Because I know a lot of the places that we started to contact have minimum requirements. You have to have so many vehicles to get the state bid price, etc. So I don't know if we as a county together, if we were, the 10 villages were to work together to put together our vehicle needs, go to a dealer and say, here, we need
10 vehicles, 15 vehicles, would we be able to get a better price? So that's something that they've asked about, to see if we can avail ourselves of the ability to bargain and search and get services for us together. Part of that being the grant writing service for, I know most of us, not all of us, have sewer plants that we are administering at this point that are becoming, I know for Delhi, our original plant was started as a 20-year plant. It's now reaching the end and obviously needs repairs, upgrades, work that the village find a way. So if there are grants out there for that type of thing that we can apply for, that might be a common need.
Didn't you guys have a part-time grant writer at one time?
We actually had a full-time, we had 2 full-time grant writers.
Oh,
One retired, the other, we just moved from full-time to part-time. We still have part-time. We just moved her back to part-time.
cash, right?
Yeah. Grants are perfect, grants are great, but just remember that that's what got the village of Sydney in trouble where it's at. We got so many grants and all of them has a match.
Right.
They all got a 10% match, which don't sound like much until you gotta get 100,000 here or 20,000 there or 50,000 there. And all of a sudden you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but yes, we do, we still do, and I can give you the names of the lady we just moved from full-time to part-time. She's leaving us, I think, because she wants a full-time job, obviously, and then just moved her part-time.
Well, there again, if we have people that would like to come and present their services to us, what they would be willing to do and anticipate what kind of results they may be able to get.
Well, I'm just wondering if we had, 9 or 10 villages that could use the service. What kind of salary is that person looking for?
Right.
Maybe between the 10 of us, we could come up with something that give them some, because we could all benefit from, I don't know, I'm in a world type way, so I realize that. Bring it along.
But I'm just thinking that that's something we had initially talked about. And maybe we should be exploring a little bit further. I don't want us to become just focused on
One thing, right?
one thing that we're trying to accomplish. I think that
We also talked to in the beginning about foreclosures on properties.
Right.
That's another thing that I had spoke to the county clerk about, and they were looking to do something with the county, I'm hoping.
we have had, in the village, we've had a policy in place and a procedure for the village to pursue. Our lawyer, because there were recent legal decisions that were made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, couldn't pursue those further up until, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. He came through and said, everything's been settled, everything's now in place. I can now start moving forward on some of these foreclosures, so. We have one that's, what, 1,000?
5 years,
5 years.
4 years, 5 years, yeah.
So I can let you know how that goes.
But I mean, we do that ourselves too, but it would be nice if we could have the county, like most of the other counties in the state, do that.
And again, that would be a shared service.
Be a shared service, right?
And we've also talked about the code enforcement and assessors.
The county's been going about the code, and I think it's a good idea. I know it's not an easy chore, because we're all having issues, I think, with getting code guys to come in, and the salaries, which I was talking to my code guy this morning, he was telling me what code guys working full-time make, and I was like, whoa, and he was saying like $80,000 to $100,000. I'm going, wow. I mean, I'm sure you all heard that. It's
And those are the cheaper ones.
yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Someone was, he said it was 130, 140, wow. So it's tough. we wanna have all these things, but it's the taxpayer that gets hit with the bill, so
So has everyone been experiencing the same thing? I don't know if Delhi is a little bit different, but it seems as if we are having a post-COVID mini explosion where there's so much going on as far as properties are concerned for sales and development right now that that code officer is finding himself a little bit overwhelmed at this point.
we're all going through it.
Yeah.
I think we're all having a problem with code officers because there's not enough to go around. And with the new rules and regulations that the code guys have to go to school, it's not the old days anymore. I said, I was the contractor, I could just do it. Now you can't. You have to have schooling, you have to have a degree, you have to have certain things, you have to be qualified also, which I understand, but then they give them more, then they make more money, which they all want. So it's the name of the game, the money. It's all about the money, you know.
One thing that's gonna make it more difficult is as they move into the energy rules, the conversion to electrical.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's gonna be.
There's massive training gonna be required.
Do we know if the county's got any fiber with their movement towards?
I know
Oh,
Josh,
that's the part.
who came and talked to us, he's still continuing to push for county development. Still looking to try and solidify so that there is adequate or more than adequate service to the whole county, but trying to get movement is, as as I think everybody's experiencing, trying to get movement, sometimes it's a little, nothing seems to move quickly when it comes to the government. That's sometimes true. of the
Oh,
villages.
all government, absolutely, yeah, all government.
So I'm not sure.
What is, you said finalized documents covenant agreements?
Well, that's I was just gonna get to the asking about we sent the bylaws, the rewritten bylaws to everybody to take a look at and go over. Were there any necessary changes? There are a couple of typos that Kim found.
Yeah.
But we corrected those. But in the main part is that what we feel is a good basis for this group's organization.
Yeah. And our terms or is it gonna be like we were discussing, like how the village runs, will run from May to June, June, you know what I mean, like how we do our budget, is that how we're gonna do things?
That's,
Huh?
yeah, that would be up to us, I would think.
I would agree, I'm just saying, you know, this way,
Yeah.
you get stuck to it a little bit longer, but that's okay.
Well, thank you.
Or shorter. May 31st, you're done.
Oh, yeah. That's one way to do it, right? Yeah, I also, the 500, our board already approved this.
Ours too.
Are we gonna do that? So that's gonna be the same thing for the beginning of June to June, and that's how we'll do it. But it's always been in our budget, is that okay?
Okay, yeah,
And that way you'll have time.
It sounds to me like all the village boards are very supportive of this effort.
Yeah,
Delhi's in.
Hancock said they were, the department said they were, so I.
yeah.
It's been a long time coming, this is needed to happen.
How about Fleischman? We all set with Fleischman? They're good with that?
We are.
Is there anything else that we should discuss as a group before?
Just one thing, and it may not impact on many of the villages, but we recently applied to rural development for funding for an engineering study. And we're told that because of the in-migrated population of the village, that we've gone up about $10,000 in our median income, which knocked us right out of eligibility for grant funding. I mean, that, not all grantors have the same requirements, but certainly that hurts because rural development is a good solid support to, a grantor for a variety of different type of infrastructure improvements, so. Just be aware.
That's not helpful.
No. But larger villages wouldn't have been impacted the same way as the smaller ones.
But I'm sure that that's gonna come across.
It hits us in different ways. We have lost, I'm sure like Del and everybody else, we have lost a lot of grants because we try to keep things upgraded as best we can. So it was almost like, did a good job, but too bad you can't get it. So we should let things break and the water all over the place, and they come in there and give us, flood us some money. But it's, I find that with the wastewater treatment plant, I find that with the water system that we have, no, you don't, the point system is the same because this is right. So, the end is you do, the end is you don't, right? So how the saying goes. So that's why I really think I wish that somehow we could do a grant writer. I think what you're talking about, what everybody else is talking about, and a grant writer that could maybe find the appropriate grants that we can get somebody would help.
If there's no further discussion, we'll meet again. What's the date?
Eric will find out, I'll let you know.
Top of the agenda, March 13th.
March 13th.
It'll be 10 a.m.
It was a good meeting, informative, I thought it went well, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
And let me know if the grant writer would like to.
Right, I'll talk to him.
Services.
Okay. There's another one too, actually, I know a couple others, there's a lady that worked, I think she just left.